Good Friday of the first week of Lent. And today we're talking about fasting. So, how's it going? I hope well. I don't know how my fasting's going because I'm making this ahead of Lent, obviously. So, um, I will be checking in as this thing goes. Again, my fasting, I'm going to give up watching the streaming services during Lent. Today, I'd like to speak about fasting in this way, in this mode. Fasting and being nourished. So fasting can call forth from us or call us to a discernment of two things. Really, they have both to do with being nourished. The first has to do with the question, how much is enough? Which is one of the fundamental human questions, I believe. At least I find it is. The first distinction or the first discernment has to do with the difference between being nourished and being filled. And the obvious example is I can be filled very easily by, two, three, four cartons of Haagen-Dazs vanilla Swiss almond ice cream with a little bit of Bailey's over the top, heated up, which is, by the way, the recipe for the proof of the existence of God, just to let you know. I could be filled with that. I could be filled at Thanksgiving, turkey and dressing and cranberry sauce and salad and everything. And pumpkin pie, which is essentially a vegetable, right? I could be filled and maybe have enough wherewithal to waddle to the easy chair for a nap. Nourishment's another thing, isn't it? And I'm not here to tell you what to eat about you. You got to eat a healthy diet. You got to eat sauerkraut and celery sticks the rest of your life. Doesn't matter to me. But there are a couple things about being nourished. And the first one has to do with how much is enough. Again, the most fundamental human question. It's very much like what endures. In the Mass prayers, there's a prayer that we might learn to seek what endures and let go of what is passing in life. That's the discernment. So here's a story about St. Ignatius. You may or may not know he was a soldier, a Basque, a courtier, brave and, let me go out there and fight and win glory and win the chicks. In a battle against the French army in Pamplona in Spain, a cannonball shattered both his legs, and he was taken back to the castle at Loyola, Spain, in the Basque Country. He went through the surgeries, was going through the recuperation, and asked around, said, is there anything to read here? And he was expecting the kind of usual love stories and stories of valor and getting the chicks, And there weren't any in the house. They didn't have a library. What they had were two books, The Life of Christ and Life of the Saints. And over time, Ignatius was kind of doing the, instead of reading the literature, he would fantasize about, saving the day and winning the princess and winning her hand and winning glory and money. when he would read about the life of Christ and when he would read about the saints, he started to notice that being engaged in the life of St. Francis and St. Dominic, especially those two, he would say, I could do that. And something it was elicited in him as a great desire that morphed and grew and matured into the desire to follow Christ. It was that discernment about spending time in his head, fantasizing about glory and power, riches, and honor, and the chicks. And he would reflect on that, and it would go away, wouldn't last. But reflecting on wanting to be like Francis and Dominic, he would sit with that, and it was nourishing. It was nourishing, and he reflected more and more on that, which was, most folks would say that was the early stages of his learning about discernment. What's the difference between being filled and whether it's, fantasies about greatness, fantasies about winning and destroying our enemies, obviously sexual fantasies, any of that stuff. He discovered there was something more nourishing in the way he would reflect on that. I propose that as a metaphor for fasting, asking of us a discernment, what nourishes and how much nourishes. Fasting is not about dieting. We all, most of us got to do that anyway. But seeking to be filled, in my experience, is a way of avoiding being hungry. Seeking nourishment to see what lasts is a way to discover the mystery of my life and my deeper desires. My wants might be to say, fill this void. Separation from food and fasting could allow me, and any of us, to start to ask that question, what's really nourishing? What's really true and enduring? So that's something about fasting. There's a second thing, and this is the other part about nourishment. It's about the capacity to receive. So I've known a lot of people over the years in the parishes with celiac. It's an autoimmune disease in which an allergy to especially wheat and oats, but also barley and rye, which produce gluten, it's gluten intolerance. It keeps a person from thriving. Because what it does is it doesn't allow the body to receive, even the best food, it doesn't allow the body to receive the nutrients inherent in the food, in the food at all. So again, this is a metaphor. This is using that as a symbol. What happens in the autoimmune disease is that the presence of gluten in wheat, oats, barley, and rye go especially into the small intestine. And there are, these finger-like dealies in the small intestine that as the food's passing through, it It draws in, it soaks in, it receives, it welcomes, it embraces that which is nourishing, and the rest of it passes out. Without the nutrients, a person becomes anemic, weak, physically. Now, what happens when this is spiritual? Fill me, fill me, fill me, fill me. It goes right through. The discernment, I find, has to do with discovering, becoming aware of how I, in fact, deal with relationships. Fill me, fill me, fill me, fill me. And that which is nourishing, the nutrients pass right through. Is there a way to learn by becoming aware of possible, maybe even probable, incapacities to be nourished deeply by relationships, so that we're not devouring the other person or becoming like a parasite, or become the codependent thing. So many of us do that, yeah. Our capacity to receive, as we become aware of it and accept it as data, we start taking actions of saying, so I let go of my need, let go of the drive, let go of the fear of being alone and abandoned, for example, as best I can, so that I'm not extracting nutrients from others instead of receiving nourishing friendship and love from others. Maybe that image will work for some of you. The deal is, fasting in itself can teach us what? Noverum me. May I know myself, O God. Noverum te. May I know you in this way. Go to communion. How do I receive? How do I receive that which is eternally nourishing when I'm busy about many things, making lists, worried about if someone bumped into my nice car, things like that in the parking lot, kids crying, whatever. It raises the question for me, in relationship to God, self, and others, how am I nourished? How can I become nourished? And finally, how much is enough? Last thing, when we're given the host at Mass, which is about yay big, noticed for a long time that wouldn't feed much of an anthill. That host wouldn't feed much of anything physically. How do we receive the Christ who is present sacramentally in that little unnourishing wafer, but the Christ who is eternally nourishing, the bread of life? So, happy Lent. May God bless you and me. The knowledge of our hungers, with the knowledge of how we try to sidestep them and just fill with all kinds of junk. And with the knowledge and experience of, here I am, I'm your hungry servant, O God. More, please. Nourish me. May God continue to lead us and guide us this Lent of 2022. God bless and peace be with you. Bye now.